Democratic Senator Chris Murphy launched a rather brutal expose into the unconstitutional Trump action to halt all federal grants, something that will affect things like school meal programs, veteran housing assistance, Medicaid, and more. So I thought we could look over this and use it as a framework to add more context to the conversation. Hey you, yes, you, we now have a Substack website where you can help support the channel. For just $8 a month, you can get daily articles exposing the chaos in Trump's first 100 days, a weekly podcast, and other exclusive perks, all while helping the channel grow and defend democracy. This is something that's not just very important to me, but enables us to get our message out to the most amount of people while also being just a genuine passion that I would love to pursue. So for those who have been wondering how to support the channel, how to help us grow, you can sign up now at the first link in our description. Thank you, and let's get back to the video.
Do you believe that the action that the Trump administration is taking here is illegal?
It's grossly unconstitutional. It is absolutely clear, based upon prior Supreme Court decisions, that the president cannot unilaterally suspend government programs in order to impose his own priorities and his own policy on top of what was passed by Congress. To me, this is inherently corrupt. What Trump is trying to do is seize control of government spending so that he can send money to his friends and to his loyalists, and he can punish states, for instance, like Connecticut, that are represented by his political opponent.
He's spot on here. It boils down to, in the larger picture, Trump wanting to be able to financially punish institutions and agencies that don't bend to his will and fall under his agenda, as more power will be consolidated under the executive to him as an authoritarian dictator, essentially, with a way to also please his loyalists financially and, by consent. This is and manufacture it. This is also widely upheld in Supreme Court precedents, as he mentions, something MAGA loves to pretend matters when they're coddling Trump with every ruling. Train v. New York rules directly on this matter and found that the president cannot withhold congressionally approved funds. This was, in the case of grants, directly comparable to the situation in Trump's action. Trump also got a ruling on this in 2019 in Department of Commerce v. New York when he tried to do an executive action on the census that would have affected funding to different districts. And while the ruling wasn't directly on funding, the Supreme Court did state that, again, the president cannot do executive action in a manner that affects congressionally approved funding. Trump is trying to circumvent our systems of government, our Constitution, and our Supreme Court rulings to consolidate power like a dictator. This is fascism.
Why do you think the Republicans on Capitol Hill were not bothered, or near as bothered as you are, by a very clear willingness by the White House to subvert Congress when it comes to funding?
I think for two reasons. One, they're pretty confident that if Trump is in charge of what states get money or what disasters get money, that their constituents in their states will be taken care of. Two, this is also an exercise in withholding all of these payments so that the president can reserve money to pay for his giant tax cut, mostly going to billionaires and corporations.
You think that's what he's doing here?
I think that's part of the rationale here, is trying to create a pretext in which he can say, hey, don't worry about how much I'm giving away in a corporate tax cut or an elimination of the estate tax on the wealthiest billionaire families, because I saved a bunch of money by shutting down funding for elementary schools and middle schools in this country.
Yeah, because if the tables were turned and Joe Biden was pulling funding from programs that red states valued and Republicans loved, they would be crying victim. Like, imagine the outcry if Biden did this to immigration-related agencies while investigating them for racist actions. They'd be like, he's letting the terrorists in and all of it. Another part of this I want to be sure and cover, though, because I've seen this be part of the ways that people try to justify this, is saying, well, nobody's individual assistance will be affected, or this won't directly, which I guess is kind of true in that, yeah, him pausing the grants doesn't pause the direct payments. Like, they're not going to just not be able to get their payments in the next morning. But it's the funding for these agencies that get affected, which in turn affects their ability to provide assistance, which downstream will affect your ability to get individual assistance. How is Head Start going to provide you free childcare that you rely on for work when they have to cut clients due to having to cut staffing due to lack of funding? Or how do schools provide healthy, quality free lunches when they only have half the resources to do so now? It absolutely will affect you, and it just gives them an avenue in a few years to turn around and go, look how ineffective these programs are. Let's permanently cut them. Because This is how Republicans do government. They get in, they destroy it, and then they point at it and say it's ineffective so they can privatize it. Because the reason, and this is going to be groundbreaking, the reason Republicans, conservatives, are small government is because less government means more privatization, which means more profit for corporations and the wealthy, which is what they want. Government is objectively disproportionately beneficial to the most vulnerable, the lower income, the lower middle income members of society, while burdensome to the higher income members of society, which is why the wealthy hate it.
What is your reaction to a senior West Wing employee seeming to say that they are looking into the political affiliations of career government employees?
First of all, that's not true. 98% of employees at USAID did not donate to Kamala Harris. They are making
He
up.
said, or a left-wing candidate was
They are making up facts. Yes, they have made no bones about it. They want to purge from government people who just show up every day to implement the law and the Constitution. The only qualification to Donald Trump for you to serve in government is if you pledge a loyalty oath to him personally and are willing to facilitate his corruption. He is trying to turn government into an enrichment vehicle for his billionaire friends. He wants to steal from ordinary people in order to help his Mar-a-Lago crowd. And if you aren't interested in that agenda, then you can't work for the president of the United States. All those people.
And you need to understand how powerful of a tool this is to really understand why it's never been allowed before and definitely shouldn't be normalized now. It allows Trump to control all information. This is a core first step to fascism. I've been yelling this on since the campaign trail, but where before agencies advised the presidency based off the facts, based off their findings of things and evidence, right? And then they now are at his direction of what evidence is real, what evidence to listen, or else they're at risk of losing funding. This allows him to control medical information, scientific information, intelligence information, foreign information, and then regurgitate it through whatever lens he wants to also control further the media narratives in the country. It's why this administration is going to be like crack cocaine for 60 IQ people, because they can just come out and have Caroline Leavitt say whatever in a press conference, and their base will eat it up and spit it out as fact. And Donald Trump has full control of this narrative now, as the agencies can't release reports that would contradict him later on down the line, right? He controls those reports. So if anything, he can have them release one that omits anything that would contradict him and makes him look like he's completely right. So now when Trump says California turned their water on just because he visited, it's taken as a fact. When he says he strong-armed Colombia into accepting his deal, it's accepted as a fact, whatever it may be. And then again, he can just direct whatever agency to come out with some report that gives credence to whatever he's saying. I mean, we no longer have a government that works for the people, but a government that works for Donald Trump, which is a scary thing.